Blessings in the Son of God, Jesus Christ, our now reigning Davidic King. Hail Christ, hail victory. The loud cry of Revelation 18 is a call to come out of Babylon the Great, and that Babylon has fallen, and that it is the habitation of every foul and unclean spirit and every foul bird. Now, this has to do with the mark of the beast crisis, right? At some point, the image of the beast is going to speak and give religious legislation having to do with the mark of the beast. People obviously differ on what the mark of the beast is. What is the mark of the beast? Well, at the end of the day, it's about our worship, right? The mark of the beast is about our worship. That's what God really cares about. That's what Jehovah is concerned with. Unfortunately, a lot of people are so focused on, is it a computer chip? Was it the jab? That was a few years ago. And at the end of the day, it is our worship that matters to God. In order to find out what the mark of the beast is, you first have to know what the seal of the living God is. And if you have a good translation like the ASV 1901, then you'll see that the seal of the living God is the name of the Father and the Son. Where do we get the Father-Son language of Jesus and Jehovah that we see all over the New Testament? Well, you get it from the Davidic covenant, 2 Samuel 7. Okay. Well, there's going to be a point in the latter times that kingdom Christians are going to give the loud cry. And the loud cry is to come out of Babylon. And what is Babylon? Well, it's the whole world. It's the whole world system, Babylon the Great. I think a lot of times we focus on trying to narrow it down to a specific entity. And I really think it's the whole world. And I think there definitely are organizations that are playing a pivotal role. The United States of America, that can't be denied. The Roman Catholic Church, the United Nations, the Baha'i Faith, the World Council of Churches, Judaism, Islam, okay, modern day Israel. But think of Babylon the Great as the whole world system. That's the easiest and simplest and safest way to look at it. There's a reason why Jesus says, when he returns to the earth, will he find faith? Because very few people will be in the true faith when Jesus' second advent takes place. And the loud cry will take place at the time the mark of the beast crisis begins. And again, if you're focused on a computer chip, a jab, AI about what the mark of the beast is, you are on the way wrong path. Now, those things may be used as propaganda tools for it, like AI and technology. But Jehovah God cares far more about your worship than he does a computer chip. And there will be a call, a trumpet call by the remnant few for God's people to come out of Babylon the Great. That's why really we should be separating ourselves from the world now, because when the time comes, the pressure and the immensity of that crisis is like what the Bible says, if it were possible, even the elect would be deceived. If it were possible. I mean, the whole world's going to be swayed by this, because even in 2 Thessalonians 2, God, Jehovah, sends the world a strong delusion. Notice it's not Satan sending it, it's God sending it. Because those who being deceived chose their deception. So God gives them over to us. Says, hey, you want to drink that half a cup of poison? Hold on. I'll fill your cup up with deception, and now you drink it. See, if you look at the world right now, it's never been connected before like it is now. And that's because of, obviously, technology. It's never been connected. The Industrial Revolution initiated it. The technological revolution has completed it. The globalization of the world. See, God hates globalism. Look at the Tower of Babel. God loves borders. He loves sovereign countries. Acts 17, the book of Deuteronomy. But this is the way it's meant to be. And to be honest with you, barring some cataclysmic thing where technology is destroyed, there is no turning back the hands of time on this. And so we're headed for, it's a mega trend, we're headed for this pinnacle. And if you read, like, this is why I love the Didache, because the Antichrist in the Didache is a pretended son of God. Modern depictions of the Antichrist being this, like, kind of comic book character. Some people have even said the literal son of Satan. Everywhere from anything from a U.S. president to the Roman Pope, although the papacy, I believe, is the false prophet of the Revelation. But it's a pretended son of God rising up out of Jerusalem. Because the Christ, you're what? You're the royal Davidic king. You are the Davidic king. A pretender, a false claimant to the throne. Well, you have the rise of Israel in the last several decades. And who's upholding him? The United States of America is upholding Israel, aren't they? But ultimately, it's going to be a military political figure, this pretended son of God, to rise up to claim the king of David's throne, a false throne, because the true throne of David is in heaven. Acts 2, 29 through 31. And the false prophet, lamb-like in nature, two horns like a lamb, so it's a false messianism, it's a false version of Christianity. That's the Roman pontiff. Right? But notice it's the Roman pontiff that causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond. So God is no respecter of persons. He doesn't favor people because they're poor or they're in bondage. So it's going to be all those that are going to be caused to take the mark of the beast by the false prophet, not the Antichrist. Because the false prophet is going to have the very same amount of power and authority as the Antichrist is. But the job of the false prophet is to be the Pied Piper of the Antichrist. Vatican II opened the floodgates for a one-world religion. Because in Vatican II documents, they acknowledge the Jews and the Muslims worshiping the one true merciful God as Christians, and they acknowledge all world religions as worshiping the supreme being. That's Vatican II. And it's their pontiff that is leading the charge. I mean, if you look at Pope Leo, he's far more popular than Francis. And he says all the things that appeal to unbelievers and those of the world, those of the left, liberals. Pro-open borders, continual virtue signaling about the so-called poor. But it's a very poor that Pope Leo is exalting that are going to receive the mark of the beast. Why? Because it's not about, there's no virtue in being poor in and of itself. It's about being poor in spirit, humble. Because the economic crisis that will be attempted to be solved by the mark of the beast is going to appeal to the poor and the rich, of course, because the rich are not going to want to lose their status, economic status. But the poor, it appeals to them. This is why increasingly there's these calls for socialism and for, people to get, not to work and to just be taken care of by the government. Right? So he causes, the false prophet, the world to take the mark of the beast. Those who are not written in the Lamb's book of life from the foundation of the world. And notice this. He causes fire to come down out of heaven. What does that remind you of? It reminds us of the day of Pentecost, right? The book of Acts, chapter 2. Tongues of cloven fire. What I believe that is, the fire coming down from heaven, is a false tongue-speaking movement which actually started in the late 1800s. Because modern day speaking in tongues is not biblical. It's not the biblical tongues. Biblical tongues are foreign languages for the express purpose of preaching the gospel, which in Acts 2:22-36 was all about the Davidic covenant and fulfillment of that by Christ ascending to the throne of David in heaven. Well, I believe this false tongue-speaking movement is going to reverse the effects, or attempt to reverse the effects, of the original tongues preaching, because what it's going to do, this false tongue-speaking movement, is going to acknowledge a false Davidic king to rise up out of Israel, the Antichrist. Because it's going to do what the papacy wants, to uplift a false messianic king, a false Davidic king out of Israel. And notice these Pentecostal churches, I mean, they're all Zionist. They're all Zionist churches. And they deny the Father and the Son. They deny that Jesus is the Son of God. They say he's the Father, which is antichrist and satanic. And because this is what it's all about. If the seal of the living God is the name of the Father and the name of the Son, well then, wait a minute. If it's the name of the Father and the Son, well, this mark of the beast is denial of that father-son relationship. That's why I said the mark of the beast is spiritual primarily. Forehead representing our mind, hand representing the actions, but this doesn't discount a physical component to the mark. A type of the mark of the beast crisis in the first century, even beyond that, were Christians being asked to drop a pinch of incense to Caesar and profess him as Lord and Son of God. And then if they did so, they would be given a certificate so they could shop in the local marketplace in Rome, in the Roman bazaars. Well, there will be something that will cause us to either not be able to buy and sell if you don't take the mark, or to buy and sell if you do. And again, this is going to be such an immense pressure cooker that only those who are sold out for Christ are going to be able to resist. And I really advise people to get your house in order now. It's easy to be comfortable in Babylon because why? We have, let's face it, man, we have it good, especially if you're in the West, you're in America. You have it good as a Christian from a material standpoint, comfort, creature comforts galore. But the bottom line is we have to be sold out for Christ. And one of the big deceptions that I see as part of this, again, the Antichrist system will be a false messianism, setting up a false messianic system. And that's where I believe the rise of the Hebrew roots and Torah keeping movement, so-called Torah keeping, They are a big part of the last days deception. To create a false Jesus, a kosher and halal Jesus, a Talmudic Jesus that is Talmudic approved. Because this false messianism is going to include all the world religions, namely the Abrahamic ones, Islam, Judaism, and false Christianity, which includes the Hebrew roots and Messianics. They are a false version of Christianity. Paul even said, the Spirit speaketh expressly in the latter times, many will depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, forbidding people to abstain from foods. And that's exactly what the Hebrew roots movement is all about. So I do not consider anybody who's Hebrew roots my brother and sister. Paul didn't. He said it was a cursed doctrine. He said that they are cut off from Christ. They are of Hagar and Ishmael, who are not of promise. See, Christians that know they're in the new covenant and aren't trying to keep some Mosaic law, they are in the better covenant. They are of Sarah and Isaac, the chosen seed, Isaac and Sarah, our mother. We cannot be caught up in trying to be friends with everybody, trying to be brothers and sisters with everybody, because this is going to be a narrow road experience. Because I believe every kingdom Christian that goes through the mark of the beast crisis and denies the mark of the beast and listens to the loud cry to come out of Babylon, they're going to have a Garden of Gethsemane experience like Jesus did. We will each have, if we're alive during that crisis, a Garden of Gethsemane experience, where we're going to want the cup taken from us. But ultimately, we're going to say, not our will, your will, Father. But if you look at Babylon the Great, it's become a habitation of every foul spirit and every unclean bird, hasn't it? Look at America. Look at the promotion of sodomy, transgenderism, hip-hop culture, mammonism and hedonism. And this has penetrated in all the churches, hasn't it? The toleration of it, even some, the celebration of it. I believe Jehovah God's grace now is on those that are in Babylon, in the church. But there's going to be a time where that loud cry sounds, the trumpet of the loud cry, come out of her, my people. Where it will be a time of wilderness experience in a very literal way in many cases. And I think what's happened is, because of the proliferation of false prophecies from the Seventh-day Adventists, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, the evangelicals about the rapture and all this stuff, we've been numbed to this end times eschatology and talk of the latter times, because we've seen so many false prophecies. It's kind of like numbed us. Well, we can't be numb, because we got to realize there are many things happening today that are paving the yellow brick road of hell to the very latter times, to the very, very end. And the parable of the 10 virgins really sticks in my mind, because it's the 5 that have their oils trimmed with the oil of the Holy Spirit, which means obedience, that are going to make it into the new heavens and new earth, and the door will be shut, the shut door, on those who do not have their lamps trimmed. But your job as a kingdom Christian is, when this mark of the beast crisis begins, is to sound the loud cry. See, right now, evangelism by us probably is very subtle. It's very like relational. We're not putting a lot of pressure on people, but there will be a time where it's like the trumpet sounds, come out of her, my people, a voice with authority. And the whole danger in Babylon the Great, which is the whole world, is getting comfortable in it. And the good thing about persecution is it refines us. It removes a lot of the dross. When I say dross, I'm talking about just like maybe more of a lackadaisical attitude that you could have, not taking things as crucial as they really are, because we are in crucial times if you're a Christian. Your faith is being hated. 1 second. So you have to be the full armor of God. And again, it's like the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Multitudes in the Valley of Decision. For the day of Jehovah is in the Valley of Decision. It will be a Valley of Decision. And the decision point will be whether God's people, professed people, come out of her or not on that day. And they heed the loud cry. So right now is the time to take advantage of evangelism, talk to people, try to warn them. Don't be too pressured on them. But the time will be when that will be a necessity. Because I see things moving rapidly. The movements of the latter times will be rapid movements. Thank you. There'll be rapid movements. I mean, you look at what's going on in world politics. You look at what's happening in the religious world and the continual apostasy of the professed church. Like, you have women pastors now, you have sodomites being celebrated, you have pastors so-called marrying, fake marrying sodomites, calling good evil, evil good. No, thank you. You too. You have sin not being called out anymore. Everybody said they're going to heaven just because they said a prayer one time, no matter how if they obey or not. You have churches saying don't judge when it comes to the sin of sodomy. I'm like, that's the only sin you can't even talk about anymore is sodomy, because these queers are being celebrated as if they're virtuous. And they haven't read Romans 1 is not being preached anymore. Go to if you can, someone can go to a church and tell me if they hear Romans 1 ever being preached again anymore. All right? So again, it's like I said, Babylon the Great, filled with every foul spirit and unclean bird. And that's what Peter and Jude both say. It's going to be like Sodom and Gomorrah in the last days. And this is how twisted people are. They'll say, oh, well, the sin of Sodom wasn't sodomy. Wasn't that. It was, they just weren't good hosts. They weren't nice people. And that's the problem with Christianity. It's become a religion of niceness instead of kindness. There's a difference. Because kindness, if you go to the Greek, it means moral excellence. Niceness is just superficial. And that's what Christianity has become. But what does Peter call sodomites? He calls them brute beast, filthy dreamers. See, we need to go back to using Bible words. Why? Because it's hard preaching that saves lives. It's hard preaching that saves lives. Everybody's too worried about loving people into the kingdom. Well, what is love? It's keeping God's commandments, isn't it? It's keeping the commandments of Jehovah God. And I'm talking about some old Mosaic law that's been put to rest 2,000 years ago that wasn't even for Gentiles, only for ethnic Israelites. Psalm 147, Deuteronomy, I think, what is it, chapter 4 or whatever. I'm talking about the commandments of Christ that he gave and his apostles gave. And basically, we're at a point where Christianity's been reduced to the lowest common denominator. Just say a prayer to Jesus, invite him into your life, and there you go. You got your freeway ticket to heaven with no obedience required. Well, what does that lead to? That leads to antinomianism, lawlessness. I mean, the gospel isn't the Mosaic law, but it's also not a lawless gospel. Like Paul says, I'm not under the law of Moses, but I'm under the law of Christ. So this is why, and let's talk about the image of the beast. I believe the image of the beast is a union of church and state. And the job of the union of church and state will be to do the bidding of the Antichrist. And the image of the beast will speak. And what I believe that the image of the beast speaking is religious legislation. And that's where you have these hate speech laws that are all over Europe now, that if you criticize Islam, Judaism, you criticize these wicked rape gangs that are coming from the third world like Africa and Islamic countries, you will be put in jail. Even the women that complain about it. And what do we have in America now? They're trying to get laws passed, hate speech laws passed, where you cannot criticize Judaism or Israel. So-called anti-Semitic hate speech laws. Well, their target is Christianity. You're not going to be able to preach John 8:44, Revelation 2:9 and 3:9, Romans 1, and then also they're trying to create hate speech laws to protect sodomites. So that's what I believe the image of the beast speaking is. It's religious legislation. And with the ultimate legislation having to do with the mark of the beast. And you have to be, right now, for us as Kingdom Christians, we have to be in a place where we work out our own salvation with fear and trembling, because there are going to be many that try to lead astray. But you just got to, focus on your walk, because when you're living righteous, when you're living obedient to Christ, you can then slay all other disobedience, as Paul says. Anyways, hail Christ, hail victory.